It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. The United Nations warns that none of the aid allowed into Gaza for the first time in months has reached Palestinians.
Yeah, I'm not going to go too far into this.
We go inside one of Gaza's last functioning hospitals, where British doctors have a message for the world as Israel expands its military operation.
Do something. Stop talking and do something.
Here, the Israeli ambassador is summoned as the UK imposes fresh sanctions over Israel's actions.
The level of suffering, innocent children being bombed again, is utterly intolerable.
Also ahead tonight. The war that has become part of everyday life. Our team returns to Haiti's capital, where gangs battle security forces. An illegal immigrant who helped smuggle more than 3,000 people into Europe is jailed. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Hello there, good evening. The United Nations says none of the limited aid allowed by Israel to enter Gaza over the last 2 days has yet reached the Palestinian people. Israel insists that supply trucks are being allowed into the enclave, where the UN says almost 500,000 people are facing catastrophic hunger. International condemnation of Israel's military campaign in Gaza is growing, with the UK suspending trade talks and introducing sanctions. 85 people were reported killed today in Gaza. Well, tonight, Israel warned that its military operation against Hamas is to be expanded. Sky News has been inside one of Gaza's last functioning hospitals, where British doctors are struggling to treat an increasing number of patients. A warning that this report from our Middle East correspondent, Alistair Bunkle, does contain distressing content.
Khan Yunis has been the focus of some of the fiercest attacks in recent days. Israeli airstrikes and ground operations have closed in on the city, forcing thousands to flee and leaving many dead and wounded. The Nasser hospital is the largest in the city. It is also one of the only hospitals still functioning. A team of British doctors and surgeons is now working there. They are specialists in plastic surgery and orthopedics. Our team in Gaza spent a few days filming with them this week. They're also sending out regular video updates. Part of the Nasser hospital has been hit and damaged by Israeli missiles. This was the burns unit, one of the busiest parts of the hospital. It is out of action now.
But that's the damage. Yeah, I'm not going to go too far into this, but wow. That's amazing.
Hello.
This baby has painful burns on her chest and back. Another lies silent on the stretcher, not moving and only able to see out of one eye. She has shrapnel wounds to her face and body. The operating theatres can sometimes feel like a bubble of quiet and calm from the war outside, but the patients are almost all suffering blast wounds. But in the hospital's emergency unit, it's chaos. Many of the survivors will need to be transferred upstairs into the care of the British doctors for reconstructive surgery.
So this is a young man that came in yesterday into the emergency department with his brother after an explosive blast.
Dr. Tom Potoko was working in the European hospital near Khan Yunis before they were evacuated in a hurry last week. Airstrikes were hitting the compound. He is now in the Amal hospital close to Nasser, working again and prepping for surgery.
So here, and then all this, just take scissors and just...
The woman on the operating table is badly injured.
And then all this, just
Her husband and children were all killed. She doesn't know yet.
What can you say? I mean, it's horrific. Gaza has become a slaughterhouse. That's what it is. It's a slaughterhouse. Do something. Stop talking and do something.
Evening bombing.
By Monday evening, the IDF declared combat zone was only a few streets from Nasser Hospital.
There he is.
A drone flew low overhead.
A sad evening in Gaza.
My anaesthetic nurse and Graham's orthopaedic colleague had to leave us mid-case to go and evacuate their families to an area of safety.
I think it's quite hard to believe. These are people just like you and me. They have their homes, their families, they live normal lives. Many are very impressive people. And without notice, they have to pick up a grab bag and leave.
With the Israeli military operation getting closer, the doctors are also ready to evacuate at short notice.
You can see that they've put a bag out there for me with my name on it. But this is the kit that they think I should be taking with me if we do get evacuated.
Nasser Hospital has the last remaining ICU department in the whole of southern Gaza. If it has to be evacuated, then the remaining temporary field hospitals would likely be overwhelmed and unable to cope. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News, in Jerusalem.
Well, today the UK summoned Israel's ambassador after the Prime Minister described the situation in Gaza as intolerable. The UK suspended free trade talks with Israel and also introduced sanctions on West Bank settlers.
I want to put on record today that we're horrified by the escalation from Israel. We repeat our demand for a ceasefire as the only way to free the hostages. We repeat our opposition to settlements in the West Bank. And we repeat our demand to massively scale up humanitarian assistance into Gaza.
Well, let's go live now to Downing Street and our chief political correspondent, John Craig. Strong words today, then, John, from both the Prime Minister and his Foreign Secretary, who called the offensive a dark new phase in this conflict. Are we seeing Western allies firmly splintering now from Israel and its ongoing ambitions in Gaza?
Well, we're certainly seeing them losing patience, as we heard from the Prime Minister and later in the Commons from the Foreign Secretary. The Prime Minister referred to a statement he made alongside President Macron of France and the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney last night. Now, what he's hoping about when he talks about collective coordinated action is other countries taking the sort of action that we heard announced by Mr. Lamy in his long statement in the Commons this afternoon. Now, after using words like egregious to describe Israel's conduct in recent days, and indeed that phrase, the dark new phase, he made these three announcements. He first, number one, we've suspended negotiations with the Israeli government on a new free trade agreement. Now, that's significant. In coming days after the government's been talking about deals with India, United States and now the European Union. Not that long ago, Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary, was talking about a trade deal with Israel being a priority. Well, that's not going to happen now. Now, number two was the summoning of the Israeli ambassador, that's Zippy Hotovely, to the Foreign Office by Hamish Faulkner, the Minister for the Middle East. And number three was those sanctions, which come on top of some already announced a few months ago. The ones today, Mr. Lamy said, were a further 3 individuals and 4 entities involved in the settler movement. Now, the best known person who's been sanctioned is a woman called Daniela Weiss, who is described as the mother of the settlements. She's also been sharply criticised by her actions by the Foreign Office. She's the most prominent one. She was involved in a controversial documentary a short time ago, and so she's been sanctioned. Clearly the government wants other countries to take similar actions. However, the response from the Israeli government has been defiant, and they are not bowing to pressure from Sir Keir, President Macron, Prime Minister Carney, or indeed the tough words from the Foreign Secretary. This is what the Israeli government said in a statement in response to Mr. Lamy's announcements. The Israeli government said this: the British mandate ended exactly 77 years ago. External pressure will not divert Israel from its path in defending its existence and security against enemies who seek its destruction. So far, the actions and the strong words have failed to move the Israeli government. They remain defiant, but you can expect the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary to keep up the pressure. And the key thing they want, of course, is for other countries to back them. So it is indeed a coordinated effort. In the Commons, there were calls for a coalition of the willing, a phrase that the Prime Minister's used talking about Ukraine. Their MPs were talking about that and getting the aid into Gaza. The Foreign Secretary was talking about all the trucks ready to go in. Well, it doesn't appear to be happening, and Israel remains defiant, still a stalemate, despite the efforts of the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary.
John, live there in Downing Street, thank you. To Haiti now, where spiralling violence has engulfed the capital, Port-au-Prince, for more than 4 years. Sky News has returned to the city and witnessed fierce clashes on the streets between gangs and security forces. Our team experienced what's been described as just an ordinary day, with police coming under fire from multiple positions. Well, thousands of people have been killed and hundreds of thousands of others displaced across the city. Armed criminal groups now control 90% of the capital, significantly more territory than since our team was last there. The red areas on this map show the zones they controlled back in March 2024. And this is the extent of their control 1 year later, with almost all of Port-au-Prince under gang rule. Our chief correspondent, Stuart Ramsey, and his team have this special report.
2 armoured Haitian police vehicles manoeuvre into gang territory in the capital Port-au-Prince. They're probing gang defences. This is one of the city's main highways, but parts of it are closed, controlled by the gangster Jimmy Chirizia, known by everyone here as Barbecue. Children on their way home from school live on the border of Barbecue's territory, and the security forces want to take it back. They've seen gang members at an intersection. Everyone scatters. They know what's coming next. The second police vehicle is hit. The tyre is punctured. They head back down the hill. The firing intensifies. We're in 2 armoured vehicles.
We're back. Okay, get in.
The police are targets, and we can film them coming under fire. The police reach the intersection. The police are being fired at from multiple positions, and rounds are getting closer to the Sky team.
Let's go. Watch, wait, we're going to get in. Right. Get in. What?
So, obviously, we're right on the edge of the gang territory. You can hear, but you probably can't hear them now, but there's been firing between the police. There's rounds, live rounds coming at us. At the police, but passing past us. The whole thing is now deserted. There were people walking along the street a minute or 2 ago. They've gone now. You can see the police cars are manoeuvring.
We reverse as the police car loses its tyre, but continues. Getting out would be suicidal. Driving on its rim, they limp towards another crossroads to get away from the firing. We're told this is just an ordinary day in Port-au-Prince. By most estimates, the gangs control around 90% of Port-au-Prince now. People don't venture into these areas. Cars turn away to avoid snipers inside. The government's forces are trying to find ways to push the gangs back. Police take positions to offer protection. The sound of gunfire here is a constant.
The big white building you see behind me is a bank. That is the demarcation line of where the gang territory that belongs to the gang leader, known as Barbecue, but his name is Jimmy Cherizier. Now, we've been to his territory in the past to meet him. The point is, it was miles away from here, miles and miles. So it means they've pushed all the way up here. His gang, like others, are doing this across Port-au-Prince.
Battered police vehicles crisscross the city. The attrition rate in what is a war with the many gangs of Port-au-Prince is high. The security forces need more of everything as they continue the fight. The gang activity means that roughly 10% of Port-au-Prince, still free, is packed with people and traffic. Just a few districts are left. They're completely surrounded. People are being squeezed into the only spaces that haven't fallen. Hundreds of thousands have lost their homes, many finding themselves in heaving makeshift camps. They huddle here for protection, but really there isn't much on offer. Barbara Gashiwi gave birth to her daughter Jenna a month ago, here beneath this plastic sheet. Heavily pregnant, she was forced from her home.
Did they just come in and say everyone out of the house?
Yo juste vini, yo di yo sorti. Qui ça yo fait exactement? Yo gade les armes sous nous.
They pulled guns on us and told us to leave the house. After that, we ran outside onto the street and took off.
Do you ever think you'll go home?
Est-ce que vous pensez que je vais retourner la caillou? Non. No, I will never.
Some gang leaders claim they're fighting the authorities, not the people. But in reality, it's the people who are suffering, condemned to live like this in squalor.
This is one of the latest camps that's been built. There's over 10,500 people in here. It's a church ground. They've only been here a month. None of them think they'll go home ever. They've been kicked out of their houses by the gangs.
This is the government's communications ministry. A year ago, we walked in off the street. People were already living here. Now, its forecourt is a camp as well. The government's abandoned this and other ministries, moving to safer ground. Whole communities are now on their own.
We need help in this country. We don't got no sheriff, we don't got nobody to help us. Everybody's suffering out here. Right now, you see what this food does? You gotta have money to buy food. A lot of people don't got no money out here. A lot of people don't got no money out here to buy no food.
The international community has promised to help Haiti combat the gangs, but it's a slow, difficult process, and promised equipment and funding is in short supply. Dismantling the gangs is the aim. Until that happens, conditions for the people will only get worse. Stuart Ramsey, Sky News, Port-au-Prince.
And more from Stuart in the days ahead. Now, the first person in the UK to be convicted for their involvement in smuggling migrants across the Mediterranean has been sentenced to 25 years in prison. Ahmed Ibid provided boats, crews and technical advice to gangs smuggling people from North Africa to Italy. Our correspondent Ashton Huranag has more.
Is that the only phone? No? Is that the only phone?
Within weeks of coming over to the UK on a small boat, Ahmed Ibid was organising for others to do the same. Originally from Egypt, he crossed the channel with his wife and daughter in October 2022.
He said he'll be fully compliant.
All the while, the 42-year-old was arranging crossings like these in the Mediterranean. He was the leader of an organised network that stretched from Libya to Ibid's taxpayer-funded home in West London. The National Crime Agency bugged the property after a tip-off from the Italian authorities. It was from here he masterminded a £12 million operation.
He transported approximately 3,800 migrants. We believe they each paid approximately £3,200 to cross in his boat When the vessels got to a certain point in the journey, they called the Italian lifeguard and were rescued. In the first crossing that we became aware of, there were actually 2 fatalities when the lifeguard rescued the boat.
Ebed was a former fisherman turned virtual skipper who called himself the captain. These images found on his phone show the scale of his exploitation of vulnerable people for profit.
He had no regard for the safety of the individuals who were being transported, and in fact were viewing them essentially as human cargo. There are specific incidents in which he discussed with associates that each person would need to give up his or her mobile phone, and that in fact, if anyone was caught with a phone, that person would be tossed overboard.
Ebed claimed that he was a low-ranking member of the network, but he was, in fact, a central figure. The judge said that he was callously and ruthlessly exploiting men, women and children. Ebed is the first person in Britain to be convicted of smuggling people across the Mediterranean. He said he was making a living, but it came at the cost of others risking death. Ashna Harinag, Sky News.
President Trump has tonight announced the next step in his plan for a huge missile defence shield for the United States. The system, to be called the Golden Dome, is expected to cost at least $175 billion.
This design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defence capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term. So we'll have it done in about 3 years. Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space. And we will have the best system ever built.
Let's go live to Washington and our US correspondent James Matthews. He's watched conflicts, no doubt, elsewhere, James, like Israel, for example. But this would be a massive undertaking, talked about since, what, the 1980s?
Well, that's right, yeah. Remember Ronald Reagan's Star Wars program? And I suppose that is the template. But Trump has been looking at the way the Iron Dome works in Israel, and he likes the look of it. Of course, in the United States, under Donald Trump, it will be bigger, it will be a different colour. Golden, what else? Essentially, this would be a missile defence shield operated from space, built or moulded around the Israeli system, but that's ground-based, and it has to protect an area that is relatively small. In the United States, a Golden Dome would be protecting a far larger area. It would need to target bigger missiles fired from further away. Essentially, it would be space-based, and the technology would see the missile being fired and could take it out, in theory, before its booster phase. It's controversial. It has its critics who say it's unnecessary, too expensive, and would trigger an arms race in space. Donald Trump was asked at that news conference, whose idea was this, yours or your generals? His answer was, I suggested it to the generals, and they agreed.
James, live there in Washington, thank you. A coroner has recorded a verdict of unlawful killing over the drowning of an 11-year-old girl at a water park in Berkshire in 2022. Senior coroner Heidi Connor also concluded that there were gross breaches of health and safety at Liquid Leisure in Windsor, which contributed to Kyra Hill's death. Sky's Molly Malone reports.
Kyra Hill was 11 years old when she drowned at a water park. For almost 3 years, her family have been grieving, waiting for answers. Today, they were in court to hear a coroner rule their daughter was unlawfully killed.
Our beloved Kyra was a remarkably strong swimmer and exceptional, a true champion in the water. Yet despite her strength, her life was tragically cut short.
Kyra had been in the lake at the water park at a birthday party, swimming in what was a designated area. The only warning signs were to alert people to shallow water, nothing to indicate the depths Kyra was swimming in. At points, the lake was over 4.5 metres deep. It took nearly 40 minutes for emergency services to be called. Kyra wouldn't be found for over an hour after that call, in water that had poor visibility. The search was described as a nightmare. The coroner ruled that Kyra was unlawfully killed because of what she said were gross breaches of health and safety measures and a lacking risk assessment at the water park, all which contributed to her death. It's evidence which the coroner said would have been incredibly difficult for the family to hear.
Thank you.
Fighting back tears in court, Leonard Hill described his daughter as a beautiful beacon of light who thrived in nature. To stop future deaths, he says he wants to see water parks be regulated.
My message is to the government and the Prime Minister. These reforms need to happen and things need to change. We need to keep our children safe.
Liquid Leisure, the company that ran the water park, say the incident was taken seriously. They were fined £80,000 last year for failing to ensure Kyra's safety. In a statement, they said, Liquid Leisure has been operating for over 20 years and has welcomed hundreds of thousands of visitors during that time. Whilst we acknowledge the conclusions reached by the coroner, nothing is more important to us than the safety of our visitors. We want to reiterate our deepest sympathies to Kyra's family and all those impacted by this tragedy. Kyra was described by her dad as a spirited young girl who stood up for what she believed was right. It is now her family who are campaigning to prevent others from losing a loved one like this. Molly Malone, Sky News.
A second man has been remanded in custody after being charged in connection with fires at properties linked to the Prime Minister. Stanislav Karpiuk, a Romanian national, is accused of arson with intent to endanger life. Roman Lavrinovich, a Ukrainian, appeared in court last week, accused of the same charge. Both men are due to appear at the Old Bailey next month. The wife of a former Conservative councillor has lost an appeal to have her sentence for inciting racial hatred reduced. Lucy Connolly was jailed for 2 years and 7 months last October over an online rant in the wake of the Southport attacks. The far-right political activist Tommy Robinson is due to be released from prison within the next week after his sentence for contempt of court was reduced by the High Court. Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, was jailed in October after admitting multiple breaches of an injunction made in 2021. The actor George Wendt, who played the affable barfly Norm in Cheers, has died at the age of 76. His family say he died peacefully in his sleep at home. His role on the US show, set in a Boston bar, earned him 6 straight Emmy Award nominations for Best Supporting Actor. Now, the Prime Minister told MPs today that the deal he's agreed with the EU gives Britain the best access of any nation outside Europe. The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, said the Prime Minister had not done enough to protect fishing communities, dismissing the deal as a betrayal. But what are people away from Westminster making of it? Here's our national correspondent who's been speaking to people in Staffordshire, Tom Parmenter.
Like it or not, the Brexit back and forth is making a comeback. After a new deal carved up with the EU aims to loosen restrictions on trade for goods like raw meats. Customer satisfaction with the whole process is pretty low.
If it can take us back, then that's fine.
You'd want to be back in?
I would want to be back in, yeah.
We haven't really had the real Brexit that we voted for, so it hasn't worked out at all, really. It's been a bit of a pointless exercise.
I've got a business, we've had to adapt and we've spent money over the last 4 or 5 years, so why do we want to go back again? I've invested time and money in it. It might not be ideal the way it is, but we've adapted to it now.
This farm shop is just outside Stoke-on-Trent, which voted strongly to leave the European Union. Now, 5.5 years later, the Prime Minister wants to reset the relationship with this deal aimed at improving security, freedom of movement and trade in and out of this country.
Come on, girls, come on.
Shuka's farm shop sells their own beef and local produce. They import some chicken from the Netherlands, but after Brexit, it became more expensive and too complicated.
It's a step in the right direction. It does feel a little bit too little too late. It's a token gesture for what really needs to be addressed. Without farming, without the fishermen, without local industry, our country has got nothing and we have nothing to offer to anybody else.
Andrew runs this farm. His business is based on meat, but he hates the part of Starmer's deal that sees the UK's fishing industry forced to share waters with European fishermen for 12 years.
I wouldn't like it, because I just worry about the fish, to be honest with you. You know, there's only so much quota there, isn't it? And why should we share it with Europe? That's our fish.
As a nation, we've been through a lot with Brexit. This deal, good or bad, is another stage of a long, messy separation. Tom Parmenter, Sky News, Staffordshire.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by the broadcaster and commentator Ali Miraj and the journalist and broadcaster Sonia Soda. Welcome to both of you. Among the stories we'll be discussing this on the front page of The Eye, as Britain accuses Israel of monstrous extremism over its siege of Gaza. More on that and plenty other stories too in just a moment.